There's a legal term that's usually buried deep inside a contract, something most of us would never even notice. But right now, that term, force majeure, has exploded into global headlines, and it's at the very center of a major international crisis.
So you have to ask, why is everyone suddenly talking about this obscure French phrase? Well, it's because this one clause is being triggered in one of the most volatile regions on Earth, and believe me, the consequences are coming for all of us. Let's break down exactly what's happening.
Okay, first things first. Before we can get into the crisis, we need to understand what this term actually means. It's pretty much the legal key that unlocks this entire situation.
At its heart, force majeure, and it literally just means superior force, is basically an escape hatch in a contract. It lets a company or a country suspend or even cancel their obligations if some massive, uncontrollable event happens that makes it impossible to follow through. And the best part for them? They don't get penalized for breaking the deal.
So what kind of event are we talking about here? Well, think big. Think of the most disruptive things imaginable. Stuff like wars, huge natural disasters, or major damage to infrastructure. It can also be new government actions, or, as we're seeing right now, massive disruptions to shipping. These are events so big, they just make fulfilling a contract totally impossible.
All right, let's get out of the textbook and into the real world, because this is not a theoretical problem anymore. Right now, several major energy producers in the Persian Gulf are declaring force majeure. And this whole crisis unfolded incredibly fast. It kicked off with strikes on Iran in late February, and from there, things just escalated. By the middle of March, with energy infrastructure getting hit and shipping routes becoming way too dangerous, major exporters had no choice but to declare force majeure and just stop their shipments.
And what's really striking here is just how specific these impacts are. It's not just one big problem. You've got Qatar, a giant in natural gas, halting its LNG exports because of attacks on its facilities. Then there's Bahrain stopping refined oil shipments after a direct hit on its main refinery. And Kuwait? They just cited the massive security risks out in the shipping lanes. Each one of these is a critical piece of the global energy puzzle.
The reason all of this is so incredibly critical really comes down to one place. A single, narrow strip of water called the Strait of Hormuz. This isn't just any waterway. It's one of the most important maritime choke points on the entire planet.
And here is the number that shows you why it matters so much. A staggering 20%, 1/5 of the entire world's supply of oil and liquefied natural gas has to pass through that one tiny strait. So you can imagine, when that route is threatened, the entire global market feels the shock almost instantly.
You see, a conflict in the Gulf doesn't just stay in the Gulf. Not anymore. These force majeure declarations have kicked off a massive chain reaction, a global domino effect that is spreading, and it is spreading fast.
And here's how that domino effect actually works. It's a pretty simple but brutal four-step process. First, there's an attack. Then, the producer declares force majeure, which legally stops all shipments. That sets off a mad scramble, with buyers all over the world desperate to find new suppliers. And that sudden panic, that global uncertainty, it causes prices everywhere to spike. The result has been immediate, and it's been severe. Just the fear of these supply shortages has already been enough to push oil prices past the $100 per barrel mark. And that's a huge psychological and economic line to cross.
And as energy analysts are pointing out, these aren't just a bunch of separate incidents happening at the same time. No, it's a cascade. A problem in one tiny part of our incredibly interconnected energy network very quickly becomes everyone's problem.
Okay, so we've got a legal clause and a geopolitical crisis on the other side of the planet. What does any of this actually mean for you in your day-to-day life? Well, the answer is, it matters a whole lot.
This is where the global story really hits home. It directly means you're going to be paying higher prices at the fuel pump. It means your electricity bill and your heating costs are probably going to go up. And it can even lead to supply shortages for all sorts of industries, all while creating this massive economic uncertainty that, affects every single one of us.
So, to wrap this all up, what we are watching happen in real time is a regional conflict through the pulling of a single legal lever, transforming into a full-blown global economic event. That's the hidden power of force majeure in our modern interconnected world. And that leaves us with a really critical question to think about. We've built our entire global economy on these incredibly complex, and as we're seeing, incredibly fragile supply chains. What does it really mean for our stability when those vital chains have a contractual off switch that can be flipped at any moment?